Okay. Hello and welcome, Success Grid Nation, to this episode of the Success Grid podcast with your host Hussein Talib. In this episode, I have with me Brigham Dallas to talk about how he turned 3,000 dollars into millions. So he started and established a business called Hello Sugar, at now valued at $10 million, with an initial investment of $3,000. His primary focus lied in building effective systems to facilitate scalable growth for the business. Brigham have resided in 9 countries, and being proficient in 3 languages, he possessed the ability to connect with diverse range of individuals. The unique experience he gained throughout his journey have equipped him to relate to people from various backgrounds and walks of life. So, Brigham, welcome to this episode of the Success Great podcast.
Hussein, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks for having me on your show.
Awesome to have you here on the show. So, first of all, because this is the Success Great podcast, I want you to tell us and the Success Great Nation, what do you think success is, and what would you see or hear other people say about success is or isn't?
Yeah, I love that question. It's something that I study a lot and I reflect on a lot because early in my career, when I had no money, it was very much just a money focused position, right? If I could make enough money, I could hit success. And as I've grown in business and I started to become wealthy and make a decent amount of money, I've kind of changed that perspective, right? I noticed that as I hit about $150,000 US dollars a month, anything above that didn't change my lifestyle that much. And so I started redefining what success was for me. And for me, I have a couple of silos of success, and it's split because usually with entrepreneurs, we're so obsessed with business that that's like our only definition of happiness, right? So, if our business does well, we're happy. If it doesn't do well, we're like sad. And there's a lot of vicissitudes to life and business that make your business go up and down no matter how good you are, right? It's not always in your control. And so for me, success is bucketed into a couple of categories. In business, success for me is helping the business grow, helping the people that I love and care about in the business also be supported and grow with it. So I started a franchise that helps other business owners start Hello Sugars. But also I play a lot of soccer. And so athletically, if I score a goal, that is success for me. And I have a really good relationship with my wife and my friends, and that's also a form of success. So if I can continue to nurture those relationships. And it's very important to me that not one of these silos of happiness outweighs the other too much, right? Like we want balance in our life. And the fourth category for me is spirituality and making sure that that's also in balance with the others. And if you have multiple silos of happiness, even if one, like if my business isn't, it's hitting a rough spot, I can find happiness in soccer and relationships and spirituality and still be holistically happy as a person.
Definitely. Like we all, anyone as a human being, we all strive to have better life, better business if we have a better relationship with the people around us, our family, and maybe rise up in our spirituality or whomever that we think a higher power, I guess. So
For
these
sure.
are very important things and they combine each other. So now you founded Hello Sugar, right? With basically $3,000 and turned it into a multi-million-dollar business like in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
The first thing is, what made you want to create this type of business, which is a brick and mortar business and basically deals with more, I assume, more of a beauty with the beauty industry and more directed towards women. So how this idea happened? How did you that started?
Yeah, I can tell you in the beginning, there's a lot of ideas in front of me. I was searching for a lot of things. Um, I liked the least amount of friction to the start of the business, right? So that was a big thing for me. I'd done a lot in the online e-commerce space before this, and I'd helped a lot of other people through an advertising company I ran make money, and I wanted to make money for myself. And I love that this had a high price point. It's about $50 to $60 per service in the United States. It takes 15 to 20 minutes to run the service, and there's a low cost of service to the appointment. So for every dollar we spend or every dollar we gain from a customer, about 50% of that contributes to the bottom line and to like your operational expenses, admin expenses. So the cost of service is only about 50% of the actual price, which is a really healthy business model, right? And so I liked all of those things. I liked that there's continuity, meaning that people come back every month. And I also liked that, I was living in a town. I'm in Phoenix. It's the fifth largest city in the United States. Most people don't realize that. It's the
Mm.
fifth largest. And so I loved the idea that I could start a business in one corner of the city and then I could grow that to a massive level. And interesting enough, I went to evaluate my business. I had a business appraisal come in like 2 years ago, and I said to him, what makes a business worth more? There's a range of multiples. And he said there were four things. It was one was a high total addressable market, the TAM. It was continuity model, membership model, subscription-based model. That was the second thing. The third was healthy economics, right? So you have like good gross profits. And finally, the fourth, which I didn't think of this one, um, the fourth one was, can you as the owner step out of the business?
Mm.
And for me and Hello Sugar, we do Brazilian waxing. We wax vaginas. I mean, that's our business, if you want to put it in a nutshell. I cannot be the operator. I cannot be the one making the service happen at all. I'm a guy, and like we just it doesn't really work, in this business. And so I couldn't be the one that was actually operating the business from the get-go, which lended itself to be a very like a perfect storm for a healthy business. And at the time I didn't know it, but like looking back, it's like 2020, like I can see it now, but it was awesome. It was like an awesome business to choose.
Definitely, like you mentioned, very important things. Like when anyone starts a business, like you don't want to keep actually doing the things that started the business in the beginning, because this way the business won't like grow or scale. And
Yeah,
this is one of the most important things. Like you don't want to keep recycling things yourself. You wanted other people, team members, or whomever that can come and help growing the business. And you mentioned very important thing is the type of business that has like relatively good net margins for profits. And this is also
yeah.
important for a business to grow, because if we don't have this high profit margins, plus, like you mentioned, also the kind of subscription that you have maybe for the business, or the continuity, or that people need it in sometime semi-regular basis or whatever. So this can grow the business. So how did you look into these things into growing it to multiple branches right now?
Yeah, I think, continue with that thought process. You've got to nail it the first time before you can scale. So you've got to build the business model. The first year, I tried to do this as cheap as possible. I started for $3,000. I trained somebody, I bought some product, and we just went to work. And we weren't great at it. We were very poor at what we were doing. But we were testing things out. I tested packages, I tested, buy two, get one free, that kind of stuff. Finally landed on a membership model, which was a monthly subscription to doing this because you get waxed once a month. So that lended itself very well to be a monthly membership. And so we nailed that portion of it, but then we had to figure out what our clientele was. And I was looking at all the reviews of all our competitors on Google, Yelp, and some of these other categories. And I think this is a good idea for most businesses. Find out what the reviews say, the positives and the negatives. And the positives in my category were, she made me feel comfortable, right? I mean, you're naked on a table with somebody looking at your lady parts, right? Like you want to feel comfortable in this situation. So that was a very high positive. And on the negative side is like they miss hairs, or they weren't very attentive to like the areas of the skin. And so I wanted to build a brand that made people feel comfortable, that was highly perspicacious, highly attentive to the needs of the client. And so, we started off with branding of just, high fashion women. We started branding with people on a beach, and I realized that's not what they wanted. The clientele wanted to feel comfortable. And it meant a lot more if there were normal looking, larger women coming in the door than it was just this perfect 10 out of 10 model as your theme person. And so we changed our advertising and branding to be larger women. Everything, nudging is to say hello, sugar. It's like, feel good here, like, hello, girl, like, come on in. Like, we're warm, we're welcoming, we're friendly. We hired estheticians. My first qualification for an esthetician was, if I sat down with you in 10 minutes, could you make me feel comfortable? And we built a brand around that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very important. Like especially for example, I would say in any type of business, the customer has to feel trust, to feel comfortable in doing business with you. And especially in this type of businesses that there's some kind of, I would say, physical interaction between two humans, for example, there should be some kind of a trust because, like, generally speaking, people would like think that you never know what happens or might go wrong. So these are there, maybe, I don't know.
Very
So
vulnerable.
a lot of thoughts, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But now, for example, you mentioned something very important, which is being comfortable also. It feels like you wanna make them feel that they are like at home or something, someone close to them doing that for them and helping them with that type of thing for them, like at home, feeling this kind of atmosphere of relaxation and comfort, which is which make people actually like continue the service with you and not look for other businesses that are kind of maybe similar to your business. So this is something that you are building, is customer loyalty is very important.
Yeah, and we're 9 years into this business at this point, and I'm still learning things about customer loyalty. So, for example, one of the big aha moments I had last year was, if you can get people in 3 times, they become loyal to your brand. They're much more, the probability of them coming back a fourth, fifth, sixth is much higher if you can get them in that third time. And so we separate loyalty and retention into 2 buckets. How do I get them in for meeting 1, 2, and 3? And then how do you keep them in after meeting 3? So post 3 transactions. And so in meetings 1, 2, and 3, we're going to add a ton of value during that time. So in meeting 1, we're going to give them a free bikini wax, upgrade to a Brazilian for $20. I won't go into the graphic detail of the difference between a bikini and a Brazilian wax, but just suffice it to say, it's a good deal, right? So the upgrades and everything. Meeting 2, we give them a free product when they come in. And in the emails that we send out, it's going to say, hey, you're going to get this free product on your second service. And then meeting 3, we're going to say, when you come in this time, you're going to get a free underarm wax along with your Brazilian. And that's a high value item. So every time they've come in, they felt their anticipation was met with excess, right? Like they were anticipating a Brazilian, but they got something more out of it. It makes a really positive experience, right? And then if they get in 3 times, they like us, they trust us, they respect us, they've had opportunities to really connect with our estheticians, they're much more likely to come more. And so the retention on 4+ intervals, it's maybe every third time we're going to give something away for free at that point. So we on the 6th visit, we give away a free brow. On the 9th visit, we give something free, etc. And that's kind of our forte on the customer side.
Mm.
On the esthetician side, another thing I've learned, aha moment in the past year was our retention right now in Phoenix, not in the company overall. The company's national, but here in Phoenix, our retention is low. I think we're at 7 or 8 months on estheticians staying at the company is very low. And there's some things that had to happen last year that I could have done differently. But a big thing is I really am starting to focus on the appreciation of the estheticians themselves. These are 20, 23-year-old estheticians, right? They're 20, 23-year-old employees. They're just leaving home. They still need a mom. You know what I mean? They still kind of need that as they come in. And, in a small setting, and this is interesting, with our franchisees, they might have 3 to 5 employees. We have 80 employees in Arizona. And so with 3 to 5 employees, they don't make as much as us in Arizona. They don't have the benefits. They don't have like the system in place. Yet their estheticians are staying 1+ years with them because they have good managers. And so the question is, how is it that we have so many more resources at our level, but we're not able to create the retention that we can in these smaller businesses? And what it comes down to is you can't think at the manager level anymore. You can't just have a good manager that leads into, plus 12+ months of retention. We've got to build systems that create that for the managers. So what we're doing now is we're creating milestones, and there might be a page of 20 different things. Like they get their first 5-star review, they get their they have 50 loyalists they've seen in a month, they've been with the company 3 months, they get a sales ratio that's high, different little things. And then we're going to give gifts for that and notifications. And they don't cost us a lot of money. We might spend $30 to $40 per esthetician per month, but just that reinforcement system builds loyalty to the brand and to the other estheticians in a bond that's tight. And that's going to create more loyalty for our company and move us from 8 months over 12 months in the next year.
Mm. Yeah, that's very important. You talked about here, like when a customer first of all generally gets something, for example, the thing, other things or plus things for free that they weren't expecting. That is something that's adding
Yeah.
value to the business and looking to it. Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. They give me something for additionally without the extra cost. For example, that adds into the connection with the business, I would say, and the loyalty for it. And also what you did with the statisticians is that you have built this kind of effective systems for you to actually deliver and facilitate growth for the business. So now,
Yeah.
yeah. So how would you now do? How are you doing now with the multiple branches, and how would you deal with other franchisee or franchisers who are looking to come in to do the business that you are doing and model that?
Are you referring to like competitors that are coming in or for franchisees that are looking to join Hello Sugar?
Yeah, you want to join Honda Sugar.
Yeah, so I started in 2015 with Hello Sugar, $3,000, started in a small 10 by 10 square foot space and proved the business model out, built a flagship, which is a 1,200 square foot space. Uh, and in 2020, at COVID, we decided to roll this out. I decided to roll this out as a franchise, and so other people could join in. And they follow the same model. We start with a 100 square foot space inside of in a salon boutique. It's a very cheap rent. Takes a week to build, takes 3 months to get fully operational off the ground. And once they build their model, once they build their clientele, they season their staff, they prove the business model, that's when they look for the giant flagship, the traditional 1,200 square foot box that you're used to. And so for us, I started offering this in 2020. If you look at a typical waxing salon business, it's about $400,000 to get in. It takes a year to build. And you hopefully you'll find a good spot, but you don't know, right? You just spent a year of your life and $400,000 on a business you know nothing about. And you're brand new, right? With our business, it's $60,000. So it's 1/8 of the price. It takes 3 months to get up and running. And it's so much cheaper to get profitable in this business. It's so much cheaper because you don't having to get, $30,000, $40,000 a month in revenue just to break even, right? You've got this one 10 by 10 room. We're doing all the advertising for you. We're booking all the reception for you. And so we've got this business model that's like a step risk function. You start in a suite, you build that out, you build your clientele, prove the business, and then move to the flagship where you can make more money. And I think that's very attractive to people. So over the past 3 years, we've opened 77 locations in this time period, and we're growing exponentially right now. It's amazing how fast we're building.
Okay, so you do provide multiple types of support for them. So you basically do the marketing or advertising. So this is one of the main ideas, I guess, for people to know there is some location for Hello Sugar in that place. So why do you do that?
Why do we provide the marketing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, there's a marriage between the franchisee and the franchisor. What happens is when you want to join a franchise, the first thing you're gonna do, Hussein, is you're gonna say, "Oh, can I talk to somebody who's a franchise owner?" You're gonna go talk to that franchise owner and you're gonna ask, "Are you happy with the franchisor?" Right? And if they're not happy with it because they're not making money or they're losing money or whatever, then they're not going to be very likely to refer other people and you're not going to grow your franchise. Success breeds success in this business. And so we asked the question, how do we help our franchisees be as successful as possible? And if you look at a business, like what causes the business to fail? And you look at all those variables that might cause a business to fail. And we say as a franchisor, how do we solve as many of those as possible? All those variables. So for example, reception is a very challenging thing for franchisees, just in general, just any business, right? You have low rate wage employees, they're minimum wage employees. They usually are part-time because they're going to school, because again, it's not a high-paying job. They don't care about the business they're working at. They're working there because they need, a little bit to live. So their motives are not aligned with the business. And so we eliminated it. We are receptionless in the company and we handled that overseas. We invested $250,000 in technology to build reception platforms out. And we completely offshored that and charge the franchisees a nominal fee per appointment. And it's a win for the franchisees because they don't have to manage a whole staff of like non-committed employees. It's a win for the company because we sell better without having these reception as like receptionists. And, we've eliminated one of those variables. The other variable being marketing, another variable being managers, and then another variable being training. And we've found ways in each of these categories to eliminate some of those frictions.
Mm. So that's very interesting. Like you mentioned, I would assume generally, like this type of business that has some kind of a receptionist when someone walks in to welcome them and let's say have a seat for until your appointment, for example, right? But you have eliminated that part and replaced it
Completely.
with some kind of a maybe ticket holder weight or something like that, for example. So that's very interesting. And you actually, it's very important, something that you mentioned. You do have someone working for the business, not just thinking their mind is outside of the business. Because generally, maybe statisticians would think about the business because they are doing the most bulk of the work, I guess, right? It's on them to do the job for itself. But for example, a receptionist is there to welcome people. But I don't know, I think maybe did you see a difference or did not make any difference generally between someone walking in and finding some kind of a human there or not? Does that
Yeah.
you notice that
We
or not did not make any difference?
Yeah, we tested this for about a year before I rolled it out. I rolled it out in one location and then a second, third, and fourth. And we looked at like the differences in sales, the difference in the client satisfaction. In every category, the client satisfaction went up when we
Hmm.
went receptionless. Because Hussein, do you listen to like do you get on TikTok or Instagram or any of those?
Uh, yeah, I get your point. Yes. So when you are like, for example, in a doctor's appointment or whatever,
Yeah.
waiting your turn, you might go for a scroll on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah. I personally don't like talking to people. Like when I walk into a business, I don't want to be like that one awkward person in the front lobby with somebody that I know is like right there. They know I'm there, and there's this like awkward stranger, not stranger moment that's kind of weird for me. I don't like that, right? Like I'd prefer just push a button, know that my appointment's coming up, and get on TikTok, scroll around for a little bit and wait for the appointment. That is such a better experience for me personally. And I think for most people, they feel that way. I think the other big thing is the client is being passed off from an esthetician who really cares about that client to a receptionist who this is just a part-time job, doesn't care if that client comes back or not. And so the sales process, the rebooking process, the membership sales process, when it's passed off to the receptionist, oftentimes gets lost. You want to rebook? No. Oh, that's okay. We'll see you when you see you. Where an esthetician is like, get on my books. Like I get really busy. I need you on my books for next month. And they're much more likely to push it. And it's harder to say no to somebody after you've been naked on a table with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good frame of things that you have built up here and really cool, amazing, some kind of a new, let's say, kind of new takeaways or new ideas like this one. Like it is very important that to take this into consideration because any business in general would think always to eliminate, I would say eliminate completely whatever it is unnecessary and would not serve the growth of the business and at the same time provide more value for the customers and for their convenience. That's very important. So, what would you say one final takeaway for the Success Grid Nation to get from this?
Yeah. Probably the biggest thing is when I started, I had no money. And I thought to myself, there's no possible way I could build, well, an empire like I have today, like, but also build even one location. And the first location I built was very difficult for me. I maxed out every loan I had. I wiped my bank account clean. I downgraded my apartment to like a much smaller, like cheaper apartment, like so that I could afford the rent at the new location. My mom flew out for 6 months to work We had reception at the time. I worked reception one day and she would work the next day. I mean, this was like a big lift, but I felt confident in it because before that, I started a suite. And this idea of starting really small with something in the back, it might not be the most ideal location, right? Like we're in the back of a plastic surgeon's office in my first location, but it allowed me to prove the business without running out of cash because, I'm paying a $4,000 or $5,000 a month rent. It allowed me to prove the business, test things out, build out the real inner workings of the business and model before I moved that to a new location. And the other thing was banks were more likely to loan me money after I'd proven the business model than I would in the beginning when I was a nobody and had nothing to show for it. And so, to that point, ask yourself if you're starting a business, how do I do this get creative? How do I do this for 3,000 or less? How do I start something really small and just prove the concept with the most minimal viable product possible before spending a lot of money and trying to scale it? Because there's a group of people out there that will accept you even with all the flaws and imperfections you have in the very beginning.
Yeah, that's amazing. And actually, you mentioned something that's very tiny, but it's very important. Like you started the first location next to a plastic surgeon, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, I would say that's like kind of a, I don't want to say maybe a gold mine, but this is what people should think, like some use of maybe other resources that are might be available to them. This is very important. And then you grew and took it somewhere else, which is very important.
And
Yeah. So, Brigham, where can people get in touch with you, learn more about you, and if they want to learn more about Hello Sugar?
yeah, I mean, if you want to follow me on TikTok, Brigham Dallas, that's my TikTok handle. But if you want to learn more about the franchising opportunities, we are currently franchising in the United States, and it's going to be Hello Sugar. Just Google Hello Sugar franchise, and you'll find us.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Brigham, for being with me on this episode of Success Great Podcast. This was an amazing knowledge that you provide us with here, amazing tips. Like, eventually, you have to start, you have to look for an idea and actually implement it with as much cash at the beginning as possible. You don't have to spend a lot of money to test the idea because when you see it succeed, you will know what to focus on and then grow and scale.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on the show, Hussein. It's been a pleasure.